Welcome to the 7th season of Smart Talks with Johan, where we explore key topics shaping the future of cybersecurity. Today I am joined by Mr. Brecht Wyseur, Director of Cybersecurity Standardization at Kudelski IoT and a board member of DLMS User Association. He is a cybersecurity expert with PhD in cryptography and extensive experience in securing IoT and energy systems. At Kudelski IoT, he plays both technical and strategic roles, contributing to major international initiatives and standardization efforts. Brecht, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you on program.
Thank you, and thank you for coming over to our offices here in Switzerland. It's great to have you over here, so thank you.
Thank you for your welcome in office. Okay, we can start with the questions. First question, alongside your role as Director of Cybersecurity Standardization at Kudelski IoT, you are also a board member of DLMS User Association, where you play a key role in cybersecurity standardization for smart energy solutions. Can you tell us more about your work in DLMS and Kudelski and how it contributes to strengthening security in smart home and smart grid technologies?
Certainly, and so maybe to start with that, let me start from the point of view of my role at Kudelski IoT itself, and start off with actually the background of our company. I think it's important to understand what our company does in order to understand what our engagement into smart energy systems is, into smart home, smart grid, and the like. So our company, Kudelski IoT is a part of the Kudelski Group. And the Kudelski Group is a pure cybersecurity company. We are around 2,000 people active globally. We have our 30 plus years heritage into digital TV content protection technology. So we've been around the corner for quite a while on that. Our engagement in that market is to secure content delivery pay TV systems. We do this at large scale, so we are the largest supplier for cybersecurity in that market. What that expertise boils down to, so the expertise that we have been building up those 30 past years, I always summarize this as two main things. One is key management large scale. So we translate the need from a content distribution operator into a key management solution that needs to be developed. So we have a lot of expertise into building full end-to-end system solutions for key management. That's one part. The second part of our expertise is into embedded security. So we implement security into devices as part of a whole system. And so we secure those devices against attackers that even can have their hands on to the devices themselves, like a set-top box at home or a smart card, you name it. It needs to withstand local attacks. So we have a lot of expertise into building those systems in a secure manner. It goes from the software into the devices, it goes even down to the firmware or even down to the hardware. So we have expertise also into hardware security. Our engagement, you ask about our engagement into the energy systems. So around 10 years ago, we started to diversify our business of key management and embedded security into different markets. And we observed that the energy market is actually one of the markets that is highly of interest for our expertise because it's also infrastructure that is at risk at large scale. And so we've been investing into deploying our technology in that market. Also, that was at the time that we also joined the DLMS User Association. So around 8 to 10 years ago, in that period, we started to also invest into joining DLMS. We joined also the European Energy ISAC, which is an association for threat monitoring. In Europe is that when we joined this. And so we started to focus on smart home and smart grid, where actually the joint factor is smart energy. So we are very active in there, and we quite quickly recognized also DLMS as being an important actor in there. So DLMS has core functionalities that bring security. It has security functionality with respect to its communication protocol. That's something that we saw as a very important building block, and yeah, it being recognized in the market is a good starting point also for us to engage with our technology. So what we do in there, you ask a question about our engagement specific into DLMS. So Indeed, myself, I'm a board member in the User Association, but together with the other members in the membership, we have last year launched an initiative on creating a task force that looks at security. So we've got a security task force that got launched, and we also have a commissioning task force that got launched. So both we are very engaged into. The security task force itself is underpinning Kudelski. It's underpinning DLMS. So as Kudelski, we are engaged in that, but it's underpinning DLMS as being a secure protocol and remaining secure as new features are being designed into the standard. And we also look at what's coming next. So we look at the upcoming regulations. So we're working on, for example, a mapping between the regulations and what the standard can do. So we help manufacturers, the membership of DLMS, into being compliant and becoming compliant. And then secondly, we're also looking also ahead on, for example, new challenges with respect to quantum computers. So we are also looking into working on DLMS being able to migrate also to supporting post-quantum algorithms to secure the future. I also mentioned about the commissioning task force. That's also one of the engagements we do. In the commissioning task force, we look at building into DLMS ways to support a full device life cycle. So DLMS devices, today they can enable secure communication. We also look at how you do secure commissioning of those devices. So when they go from manufacturing into operation. So we are working on those use cases to help then the industry into using DLMS in a very meaningful way so they can help secure the market. So that's our main commitment in DLMS. From my side, I'm doing this through helping the standard itself, the DLMS standards, but then also looking in, and I'm also very active into what the regulators are doing, like at Sense CNELEC. There's work ongoing on new regulations with respect to the Cyber Resilience Act. Also there we are very active. So we are looking a bit at this broad market and trying to help the market into evolving into a meaningful way for cybersecurity. So yeah, that's our
okay. It is
in a long nutshell our engagement.
Yes, okay. We will go deeper in all you mentioned.
Okay, cool.
Yes, okay. But first impression is that you are very experienced company in cybersecurity, in encryption, and I guess that you will give a big contribution to the LMS in defining the protocol for the beginning.
Yeah, we have a lot of expertise in our company. I mean, we as I mentioned, we go like 30 plus years already along into building cybersecurity solutions. So yeah, we have a lot of expertise. We have people in our company who are very deep into the technology, but also we have people who have a broad knowledge and are also participating in different associations. So this is an enriching group of people, and indeed that helps into helping the community in the energy sector.
Okay, what do you see as the biggest cybersecurity challenges for utility companies today, and how can the industry address them?
Okay, so answering that question, so maybe it will not be a surprise when I say that one of the big things that is happening in the market is this shift from on the infrastructure for integrating renewables and integrating EV charging stations and so forth. So that's a big shift in the market. It's not something new. I'm telling it's already for years that we see this coming, and the market is adapting accordingly. But from a cybersecurity point of view, I don't like to talk about challenge in that sense. I rather see opportunities. And the thing I see there is that from a cybersecurity point of view, it's important to look at how integration is going. So in the past, the energy market had only a very few integrators. Typically, utility has a one-to-one relationship with an integrator into building up its system, or itself acts as an integrator to connect transmission networks with distribution and then eventually connect industries and households. So this was a reasonably manageable network where an integrator has a key role for the responsibility of making sure things work. The way how that is changing these days with the integration of renewables and so forth, with the fact that utilities also want to connect, for example, with other systems like for CPOs, so charge point operators, or they want to integrate with EV charging stations, with heat pump systems and so forth. We're not talking anymore about one integrator or a limited number. It's a market now with many integrators where you need to see how you can put those systems together. Or in some cases, there's even not an integrator role on some part of the network. If people, for example, they would like to install at their homes a battery pack or an EV charging station that they buy from retail, or it's a local electrician that is connecting it, it starts to ask the question, okay, how do you now manage integration to such a complex setting? So this is a challenge that we need to address. That's leading to opportunities. I think it's opportunities for all the actors in the market. It's an opportunity for utilities to look at new use cases. It's an opportunity for manufacturers to make sure that they can build devices that can easily be connected. It's an opportunity for also technology companies like Kudelski to support those new use cases and to secure them. And it's also an opportunity for regulators who have a mission to make sure that the actors are all working together to keep those systems operational. So yeah, that's what I see. Maybe I will take a point also with respect to DLMS in that part, because I see when we want to build secure systems into such a complex infrastructure, one important core element is ensuring interoperability while also providing security, and standards play a very important role in that. So what we need to have standards that are developed in a way and rigorously tested. That's very important, that we know for sure that when a device or a system is being validated, that it can provide interoperability. It may sound easy, you just comply to a standard and that's it. But the devil is always in the details. It requires that the standard and the community around that is doing its due diligence at all the different levels. So when we talk about standards and where we are engaged into, DLMS is an application level standard, but you also have network layer standards, like we look into RF technologies. You need to properly test devices that they can properly talk to each other. I think you already at home saw sometimes your Wi-Fi doesn't talk well with your other devices and so forth. So you need to do proper testing, rigorous testing at the network layer. You need to do proper testing at the application layer, make sure everything works fine. Everything is configured also in a correct way to use those protocols in a secure manner. But then also to make sure that everybody is talking in the same way, everybody is agreeing on who can talk to whom, and for that you need to know who is the actor that is talking to you. So this relates then to identity as well, that needs to be brought into the system. So there's a lot of concepts that need to be brought together, and I see an opportunity into building systems, building technology that does that. So that's
okay. But okay, you mentioned we have example. If we look smart metering system,
yes,
we have information system, hidden system, but we also have smart meters. And you mentioned that information system cannot be separate and independent because it must be connected with some other information system, for example, for EV chargers or suppliers or etc. And one question is how to secure all that communications. And second block in the system is smart meter. And what do you think about security in smart meter? Because we heard a lot of stories that someone can hack via smart meter, or example that smart meter from some manufacturers are not completely secure. If you turn on that meter will go on some server abroad and put data where utility don't want. What do you think about that, and can utility test that can be secure for that?
So yeah, that's many questions together. So maybe let me start from the beginning. So you asked about how does it work when you have other systems that need to be involved and data that goes from one system to another. So indeed, so data protection is a big concern these days, not just for privacy, but also because that has an impact on an operational point of view. If you have a command for shutting down a certain equipment, you want that command is authentic. So what we need the technology to make sure that data that goes through systems over different networks remains secure. So that's a first element. This is where you talk about the application layer protection of data. So this is where DLMS, this is the field where DLMS is also active, so providing end-to-end data protection technology. If data moves from a head-end system over a smart meter down to an EV charging station, for example, or a heat pump, with end-to-end protection, you can make sure that the heat pump is only being shut down by an authentic party. So that's one core element. There might be other directions where data is flowing, like not through the smart meter, because in some cases a smart meter cannot provide the data towards a heat pump, for example. For that you have other protocols as well, or utilities are connecting with, in the case of EV charging stations, for example, with charge point operators, or they could be over OpenADR. There could also be communication for load balancing, you name it. There we need to look still at how do you protect end-to-end data communication. So that's one. So we need to have the technology to protect data against compromise, even if a device that would be in between would be compromised. Like if a meter would be compromised, then we should still be able to have certain security properties that are still enforced upon. On your second part of the question, okay, meters themselves. I think the market is evolving very well into building, understanding better on how to build secure products. That's happening better and better. There's chipset manufacturers that are providing chipsets that are containing core security functionality. The meter manufacturers are using that functionality for building systems where the firmware there's firmware integrity through secure boot mechanisms. There's a lot of technology that can be put in place. I think the market is moving in a good direction to support that. So I think the stories that you allude to on insecure meters that are easily to hack, I think that's hopefully for past us. At least we want that utilities, when they are purchasing equipment, they do the due diligence of checking that equipment. So that's where we need processes, we need guidelines on how you validate equipment, and then you make sure that you have sufficient confidence in them. So confidence in equipment and then confidence into data that goes through them.
Okay, but utility can check that the meter that manufacturer can't later control that meter.
Well, so there's two parts of the equipment in the infrastructure. So there's indeed equipment where the utility has a certain thing to say, typically for meters. You cannot just connect a meter at home and integrate into the network of the utility. So there the utility is in position to make a rigorous testing. Some utilities there may be integrating third-party equipment. For that they need to work with their suppliers. Also the NIS2 directive is, for example, also imposing certain rules with respect to supply chain. So I think it's important to look at the supply chain, what's happening. So that's for one part, let's say the part that is under control. But then you have a part that may not be under control of the utility. Like, for example, a heat pump. It's not a installer of the utility or the utility itself that will decide this is the heat pump that can be done or not. So there we need to make sure that there's a proper framework, proper rules on, okay, what kind of equipment can be connected or is allowed on certain market and whatnot. So there's a little bit of, we still need to figure out how to do that very well. But at least on the utility side, let's say on the operational network, utility has a certain power to
okay, but for the meters, utility can check?
In most cases, yes.
Yes, everything. Okay, thank you.
But yeah, it depends on the market, because different regions, utilities may have different responsibilities, so yeah.
Okay, can you share some best practices or innovative solutions that have been successfully implemented to strengthen security in utilities?
Okay, so the security in utilities, well, we already mentioned a little bit, but maybe also want to, like with the previous question, first sketch a little bit of what's happening. So we have this transition in the market from few integrators towards many integrators. From a security perspective, we also have a certain evolution that is ongoing and transition that is ongoing. In the past, we used to look at an infrastructure, typically an OT, we call it an OT infrastructure, so operational technology infrastructure, as being an isolated network. And then the cybersecurity of that network was basically protecting the perimeter of that network and making sure nobody can go in without any permissions. It's detecting if there's any anomalies on the network and then see how that network can be kept protected. So that's the typical approach of security based on zoning, so zoning-based security. where you have separate zones that you keep isolated, and you only connect them through firewalls. That's how things used to be. Now we're moving towards a complete different type of infrastructure, where it's almost impossible to define isolated networks. We're moving towards an infrastructure that is much more open, where you are connecting devices in the household. You cannot possibly include a household into the perimeter of the network controlled by utility. So you need to go from the point of view of open networks. And so what's happening now in the market is this move towards what we call zero trust principles. So this is the principle where you want to build security on an infrastructure with the hypothesis that the attacker is on a network. So you have to assume your network is compromised, and then based on that you want to build up a system that is secure. And so the solutions that are being developed in there and that need to be continuously improved are based on having unique devices in the network that are secure on their own, and also that have unique identity and have capabilities to prove that they are individually secure, those devices. And then from that build up the secure authentication, secure access, secure communication, protected data that comes out of that device, such that when it enters another device that needs to make a decision, or a backend system that can use that data to see what's happening in to get metering data, for example, to be able to prove that that data is correct, even if you have a network, an adversary on a network. So I think for going towards best practices, I think we definitely need to look into those zero trust principles, and we need to see how we can further enhance the technology to enable that. And the technology is about, okay, how do you do secure devices, how do you do secure identity, and how do you make sure that even attackers that have their hands on those devices can't do something wrong with it.
And how we can achieve that with passwords, encryption? It is enough or something additional?
Yeah, we definitely need to move away from passwords. I think that's recognized in the market now that there's other technology needed. I think one of the actors that will play a key role in that, into assuring that devices have a unique identity and that you have correct access control on those, I think key role is at the chipset level. So chipset manufacturers, they are the ones that should enable technology, enable, for example, principles of secure storage, secure storage. Well, first of all, unique identity that cannot be tampered with. It's secure attestation is also best done from the point of view of the hardware itself. Secure boot mechanisms as well, if you want to then protect the integrity of the software running on devices. So for me, what should definitely happen is more focus on capabilities in the chipset, and then secondly use those chipset features to then build up secure systems. So I think that's the focus point.
And do utilities, do ecosystem need some certification process then for chipset manufacturers? Do you see that in the future or next few years?
Actually, your question actually boils down to something in between. So first of all, I don't think a utility will be able to assess chipsets on their own. I think that goes too far for them in their supply chain.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's more in the middle you have the manufacturers, you have meter manufacturers or other equipment manufacturers.
Yeah.
So I think we need to go, and that's also where the market is going these days. The utility will need to set up the rules of what do component or device manufacturers need to comply with. And then those need to be able to be translated into requirements that go deeper down into the system itself. So for example, the utility must say there must be a certain proof that the device itself can only do the job that it is meant to do. It cannot be tampered with. And then it's up to the manufacturer of that equipment to then translate that requirement into a design decision on himself. He can choose to then leverage certain chipset features to enable that, to fulfill that requirement. So he could say, okay, I'll use the secure boot mechanisms, or he could do other means to assure, for example, the integrity of the execution of the software of his devices. So yeah, the utility should be able to verify the devices.
Okay, or ask for certificate. Example, utility ask require from meter manufacturers to have DLMS certificate. Example.
So certification indeed is one, and I think it's the most efficient mean to get there. So cybersecurity certification is very helpful if then the device manufacturer can prove my device is secure. You mentioned about DLMS, so DLMS provides secure protocol, provides secure communication.
But do you see example that DLMS in next few years will add that certification process?
That's a good question, because that's actually also an ongoing discussion we have currently in the security task force in DLMS. So DLMS being a secure protocol is one important step forward. But DLMS itself today does not provide a guarantee on device security. So when you certify a device with DLMS, you know that it's functionally correct with respect to DLMS.
And protocol.
It uses the protocol and it uses the configuration that is secure. But it does not today say that the key material that is used is stored in the device in a secure manner. So there's two options now. And this is something that we are discussing in the security task force. Either we extend the certification process of DLMS to, for example, include device security, or we look at third-party certification schemes. So there's ongoing work in the market today on certification schemes for the cybersecurity robustness of devices. There's a lot of work a lot of effort being put in there by different organizations, also in the context of the Cyber Resilience Act, for example, and you have the European Union Common Criteria certification schemes. So these are also schemes that could potentially be used to prove that a given device, a smart meter or something like a heat pump, is properly secured. And so if those programs are sufficiently holistic, then the combination of saying, okay, now I have a device that's interoperable because it talks DLMS, and on top of that, it has also certification from a cybersecurity perspective. Those two elements together could be very valuable for utility to then validate. Yes.
Okay, so we can expect in next few years certification process for cybersecurity, either from the LMS, either from some third party.
For sure, it will exist from third parties because the market is moving in direction today. So you have the Cyber Resilience Act that is, the act already exists. The implementation is being discussed. So the ongoing in Sensinelec, the implementation of the act is being discussed to come up with requirements, to come up with certification schemes. That will probably for smart meters or smart meter gateways. The discussions are going, but that could be coming under the umbrella of the European Union Common Criteria, so the EUCC certification scheme. So definitely this will come in the market. The target is by end of 2027 to have this scheme up and running, such that a manufacturer can go through the certification scheme and have compliant devices. So that will exist for sure. And then probably the LMS can then say, okay, we recognize these certification schemes, or the LMS will also say, okay, we give guidelines on how it can be done, or this is something that we need to look at. But for sure, there will in the next few years there will be a more holistic approach, and then we will see how that best aligns for the utility and the manufacturers.
Okay. So it is very interesting. Thanks for this useful information. But also the question is, do you see that, or maybe first to ask you, you mentioned that, okay, we discussed about smart metering, smart grid, information system for utilities. And you mentioned that this system move in zero trust system. And can you give some example from some other industry which have this kind of networks and which was on this way in parallel with this energy system?
Yeah. I do hope that the market is moving into the zero trust principles. I think that's the way how it should be. I think it's something that we see actually in multiple markets these days. In multiple standards are actually moving in that direction. Also for smart home systems, for smart building systems, we see we see more and more principles of device identity, device attestation, and then secure communication that are being integrated in the devices. So yeah, beyond the energy market, we see this in the smart building market, we see this in the smart home market. There are new protocols that are being put in the market that enable those principles, where you've got processes where you do installation through commissioning schemes, so that you know, okay, this is a secure device, I trust this device, so now I allow this device to be onboarded. So yeah, this is more and more developed. It's recognized as being a technology that is where we want to move into. For example, the NIST organization, so the American National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is the agency that is heavily investing on standardization of cryptographic algorithms like the AES, but they also have with their cybersecurity Center of Excellence, they are also working on programs for giving guidance on new technology. They have a program on IoT onboarding, where also with Kudelski we are active in. In that program, it's all about how to onboard in a secure manner devices. And so this is the core building block of for Zero Trust. And so there are ongoing projects, ongoing initiatives to frame this in a more standardized way, so it can then be used in different markets. There's a lot of activities
can
ongoing.
use that experience.
Yeah, and it's this kind of expertise of what's happening there that we then also leverage into the different standards, in particular also in DLMS. So that's where I mentioned, so we have multiple task forces in DLMS that are currently active, one being the security task force, but we also have the commissioning task force. And the commissioning task force exactly is looking at those principles into how to do secure device onboarding, so the secure device commissioning. So it's using also those principles that are being developed at NIST. So yeah, this is ongoing.
And do you see, because in other industries there are examples that companies use the service of security operations center to monitor communication through network and put any alarm if security is corrupted. So do you see that utilities will need that kind of service?
Yeah, your question is actually a good answer on the fact that we should not be blind on only these Zero Trust principles, because I mentioned about the infrastructure moving towards a more interconnected network where Zero Trust plays an important role. But still, the utilities will use or connect those systems with their IT infrastructure or third-party infrastructure, and it's still valuable and necessary to also keep an eye on those networks. So the security operations centers, those are typically the entities that will monitor what's happening on a given network to detect if there's any malicious activity, if there's anybody on the network that is trying to launch a certain attack. So by looking at the different attack vectors, if they exist in there, looking if there's denial of service attacks that might be happening and so forth. Those remain valid. It's important to deploy them. We need a combination of techniques. We need those Zero Trust principles to build up a secure system, but then we need to monitor that system through security operations centers. So the combination of the two needs to coexist into maintaining secure systems, yes.
Okay. So it is useful for utilities to have.
It's even a guideline for them to do so. So also the NIST, so the National Institute for Standards and Technology, they also have built up a program on the cybersecurity framework. There's now a second edition of the CSF. There's a CSF 2.0. And this one actually provides the pillars of building up a secure system that goes from the protection side. So you have to build a system that has the technology in there to protect itself, over to detection and response. So the detection side is, for example, with security operations centers to detect if there's malicious activity ongoing, to detect if there's vulnerabilities that need to be reported or managed. And so you have also then this management part in the cybersecurity framework where the utility also needs to put in place the procedures to act accordingly if a vulnerability is detected. So typically with response to upgrading the devices to restore their security if they're threatened, or in advance already update firmware. It might be intervention on the network itself. There might be different means, but you have this NIST CSF, which does the full holistic approach of protecting and then detecting. I think those are important principles that the utilities need to follow. For example, I think also the governments are also pushing in that direction. So the regulators, they play an important role in the matter. The regulators are also recommending or even mandating some of the utilities to put in place or to enable compliance with respect to the cybersecurity framework of NIST.
Okay, but you mentioned that you see that we go in direction of zero trust network. But before that, we have the network with separate islands, and if operator see any problem, any corruption, he can, because he has separate islands, he can make intervention in that island and divide that island from the other network. But what can be intervention in zero trust network if operators see any problem, any malfunction?
Then you need to be able to identify the origin of the threat, and then when you process data that comes from that certain origin, you always need to know the data that I get in, from whom does it come. And if a certain party is compromised, then all the data that comes from that compromised party, because of technology, you're able to know this data comes from this device, I don't trust the device anymore, then you stop making decisions based on that. And then you...
are you able to separate the device?
It's more a separation than on the level of your data processing. So you don't need to basically separate the device from network, because you already assume your network is compromised. So that's the whole point of zero trust. You assume your network is compromised, and then you put in place principles such that data that comes from that device or commands that need to be sent to that device, it's protected at that level. And so if now you know that certain device is not trusted anymore, you then need to adapt your processing to say, okay, now this device is not trusted, so that data I don't trust anymore. So if you would have a certain sensor in your network that is certainly providing data that is malicious and that says there's a surcharge of voltage on that part of the network, and your decision making would be influenced because of that. If you now know that that sensor is not trusted anymore, well, you should not make a decision based on that. So now it's about from zero trust principles of securing devices and then trusting the data to then being able to make trusted decisions. So it's a bit of a different paradigm. Still, if you have separate islands, you want to secure them, fine. But you need to be absolutely sure that your perimeter is secure, and that's the challenging part these days.
Okay, thank you for this deep explanation. Okay, this concludes the first part of our conversation with Mr. Brecht Wyseur, and stay with us for the second part, where we will explore regulatory impacts, future developments, and reflections from his career in cybersecurity.
Okay, thank you.